All right.
Holy cow, we're having a crazy day today. Hey, everyone. Hi. We decided to jump on a little bit early and turn the music up. I think you can't hear it, but yeah, listening to some tunes. Yes, that DJ Wilkie loves.
DJ Fontface.
Yeah, DJ Fontface. Hey, can you guys hear us? Let us know. Can you hear us? Oh, everyone's jumping on. That's good to see. The numbers
hi, everybody.
Yeah. Can you hear us, Victoria? Yes, great. Hey, Patrick. Hey, so let us know where you're tuning in from, and then you wanted to know what people are working on?
Sure.
You do? You want to know what people are working on?
What is in front of everyone's screen other than our lovely faces right now?
Yes, exactly. What are you working on? And I see Patrick is from the West Side, of course. Patrick had just done the Type Dojo with us last time.
Yep.
So, yeah. Hey, Michelle, where are you guys tuning in from, and what are you working on? Hey,
nice.
Holland. Very cool.
Good evening.
Yeah, that's much further than the West Side. And then we have someone from LA and from Costa Rica. And, of course, Victoria from Portugal. Hey, guys. I know we keep looking at the screen, but the camera's up here. So
sorry.
It's like, that's okay. Tune in from Croatia. Very cool.
Awesome.
And Poland hears you very well. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these tunes. You're just rocking out. Yeah. Javier from Mexico. Hey, how are you doing? So this is our Type Dojo. It's been a while since we've been on, or since I've been on. And I'm here with Eli Wilkie. So we just want to know what you guys are working on. So let us know what you're working on. We'd love to know if you're working in digital, if you're working in print with ads. Are you working on websites? Are you working on emails, contracts, Microsoft Word?
Cooking some delicious food.
I know, that would be great. Much nicer than hanging out.
What kind of drinks are you mixing right now?
Yes. That's right. We forgot to get drinks, didn't we?
We can do that later.
There you go. Beer label. Ooh,
awesome.
That's nice.
Beer label, great. Kids books, awesome.
Kids book layout at the moment. Oh, that's really fun.
Most
Theater
excellent.
posters. I get you some water, by the way. There was no vodka
That's
in it.
Perfect.
No.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Clean,
And type design.
Clean living.
Clayman, where are you calling in from? He's working on type design. Whoops. Got it. Sofia, Bulgaria. Oh,
awesome.
Very cool. So see Teresa doesn't
Thanks, Teresa.
Oh, 2 beer labels at the moment.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us. We're here at Type Dojo, and I am your host, Rachel Elner. I'm here with DJ Eli Wilkie from Monotype. You want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, sure, absolutely. So I'm an account manager at Monotype, and I've been in the type industry, actually at Monotype, for 17 and a half years.
Holy cow!
Wow,
it goes fast.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, and I'll get into it. But I mean, I've seen a huge amount of changes happen since the late 90s when I started. I can't believe I get to say that, the late 90s.
Late 90s.
Technically, it was 1999, but the fact that I've been able to start then, and from where we are today, from then, it's outstanding. And I kind of wanted to go through a little bit of that today, just to kind of show what's changed and how much it's changed, and
in 17
and
years?
how easier it is to access type. And I mean, we're just very lucky now. I mean, people who are starting their careers right now, or even going to school in graphic design or anything type related, are probably like, yeah, this is accessible. That's how it's always been, but it wasn't always like that. And I think you might have a mix of people here who have, are new to this or who have been doing this for a very long time. So I'm not really going to go too deep into things like hot metal and, typesetting with that. I unfortunately, that's not my special area, but there are people that still have do education around this, and they're still working. There's a lot of working presses out there. There's even some linotype machines that are still working. So while that's still a thing, most of us are working in the digital medium, and so we'll kind of focus on that. On that digital stuff.
So you don't do licensing for hot metal type?
I wish I could, because oddly enough, I feel like there's more like right now, just based on, my own experience from, attending graphic design conferences to being, different events in the graphic design community to things like TypeCon. I mean, there seems to be more interest now in some of the previous, more of the tactile parts of type design than there are, than, just, yes, I'm using the fonts on, Illustrator or whatnot. But I mean, back in, there seems to be more interest in things like wood type. I mean, we're talking pre-industrial revolution when people were, using wood type and wood prints, and also, metal type. There's more of just more of an interest now, and we get a lot of questions around it. And I've seen more workshops pop up around this, and so I think that's great. I think anytime that there's these digital revolutions around things like type or design, that people naturally want to go back in time and say, oh, because of this revolution's happening now. Right now it's screens and all these different types of screens and pixels and how they behave and things like HTML5. But back in, before that, it's like, well, why did we move to phototype, or why did we move? What happened in the wood type that moved to metal? So I think people are naturally curious, and I think it's great because right now everything seems to be in like kind of a little bit of a renaissance mode, I like to say, and I think it's great for everyone involved. So
great for designers, for sure. Something for us to do.
So anything else before we start, or should I just start?
I wanted to mention that if you can put your questions underneath our video, there's a questions and topics tab, so please put your questions under there. And we've got swag, right?
Yes, we do. Yes.
We've got Monotype mugs, brand new, right out of the box.
For the first 5 questions, yes.
The first 5 questions, and the
recorder. Gilnova Shadow.
And the recorder.
Monotype recorder.
The Monotype recorder, yes. So we do have some swag for those who ask questions. So yes, he's saying the first 5 questions. That means as soon as you can think of something, and hopefully they're type related, or are they just like, hey, what are you wearing? Okay.
I mean, where'd you get that shirt? Things like any kind of burning questions you have. I mean, I want to talk about quite a few things, but I might miss some stuff, or there might be something that you might want more clarity on. I'll do my best to answer that.
Yeah. Okay. And meanwhile, if you want to put anything into the chat bar, feel free to here on the right. Cool. So we'll do is start here. And 1 second. Yeah. All right, Eli, it's all yours.
Am I still on there?
Yeah, you're still on.
Okay, good. Okay, so I just gave a little bit intro about myself here. And so just a kind of a loose agenda today, but wanted to talk, quickly about kind of the history of type licensing and focusing on the desktop publishing era, since that's when most of us have been doing our work. Talk about kind of the current state of licensing and what are the kind of the current license types that are available in general by type foundries, and then talk about something that's relatively new, which is licensing fonts for HTML5 ads, so digital ads, and a little technology that we've launched called Sky Fonts, which helps enable syncing and delivery of typefaces. And I'm going to talk about subscription that Monotype has, called Monotype Library Subscription, so essentially another delivery mechanism. And then finally, enterprise license that we have available, which kind of covers just about everything. So that's the agenda, and I just always have to put this out there. I know most people there know this completely, but fonts are software. So before we go down this whole thing of licensing, it's kind of good to know why. I mean, typefaces are software. They're not different than any other software. They are different to some because it's very small and it does very little. It renders type on a screen, but essentially it's a set of instructions. It's licensed. It's copyrighted, trademarked. These are things that are absolutely good to start the foundation for the rest of any discussion around licensing. And so it's recognized as a license by everybody. So to put that out there. And so the company I come from is very old. Monotype has been creating typesetting devices in type for 120 plus years, and now if you think that Linotype is part of Monotype, I mean that's another whole 100 plus years worth of type history, type design, and typesetting that's all kind of wrapped up into Monotype. And
let me ask you guys, have you heard of Monotype before? Let us know in the chat if you've ever heard of this company, Monotype.
Yeah, and just to kind of frame this as well, as I was kind of moving to Monotype is really a collection of a bunch of type companies. So we're Linotype, ITC, Bitstream. There's some Ascender fonts, and as well we represent Monotype, which used to be China Types. We actually have a whole group creating the top, I'd say, the most quality and beautiful Chinese typefaces in the world, and that's part of our collection. So those are something that we have available. So yeah, when I say Monotype, it kind of means that whole umbrella. And web-wise, we're fonts.com, also linotype.com, and then we represent My Fonts is also under the umbrella too. So quite a number of the places that you go for web commerce to buy typefaces or to license them or to get inspiration, those are all part of Monotype. So
it's all you guys. So Matsusa, I wanted to just mention, if you could put your question under the question and topics tab underneath the video, that'd be very helpful. And then Dee says that he has a recorder from 1957.
Yes, that's amazing. I mean, there's been a large gap in the creation of the Monotype recorder, and it's something that in the last 2 years, let's see, Monotype recorder.
Oh, I see.
It used to be something that was produced quite often, dating back, I want to say, over 100 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was a way that Monotype, which was kind of the premier foundry at the time, was able to communicate new typefaces through amazing typesetting. Because back then it wasn't just here's the typeface. People were typeface specialists, and they were able to get the most out of using typesetter and put together these awesome type samples, I guess you could call them now. And so it's something that we don't see as much anymore because people aren't making as many physical printed things, but they're things that we still thought it would be fun. So it's a mixture of, now it's more of a mixture of type design, but also lettering, anything about communication. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here, like artwork, graffiti, painting, digital, so a whole bunch of things. So, so yep. So yeah, so like I said, it's, there's a lot of history that comes with type, and I'd like to kind of focus on, I guess, the desktop publishing range when we started to have computers in our houses and fonts fonts in front of us. So I was just talking about things like hot metal and wood type, and right now, the challenge for designers and for anyone communicating brand is it's all screens now. You have to basically design for thousands of different screens, and they're all different sizes. They're read on all different kind of places. But ultimately now everything you make, or a lot of things that you make, will be destined for one of these screens. And so some of the things that people need to think about are those screens. And that's why in the last 6 years you've heard a lot more about things like responsive web design, where you're not designing for a fixed screen, you're designing for flexible grids and things like that. Where that's kind of been the biggest challenge, and the biggest, I'd say, change in technology has been just the fact that you're building for screens now. And so I won't spend too much time on this, but I just wanted to give you guys some ideas of what are the primary types of licenses that are available. And again, there's thousands of type foundries out there, and a lot of them have funky, different licenses. I'm coming from from the Monotype angle, which again, we have, our group of IP is, over 10,000 typefaces. So we have a lot of our own IP, and so we wanted to make things very easy for designers, essentially, to license the right type of license and to do it easily and quickly. And so this is basically where we're at. And I'm going to start in the corner left here with desktop use. This is kind of the first licensing that was available for desktop publishing. You were using things like Quark Express and like early versions of Adobe products back in the 90s or late 80s, and you're essentially buying a font. You bought a font, and again, even in 1999 when I started selling typefaces, they came on a floppy disk.
Oh, yes,
not even
I
joking.
love those.
When I started in 1999, people required that we send a typeface to them on a floppy disk. Some people just having a typeface sent through email just wasn't always it didn't always work out. And you have to realize back then, PostScript font was still the predominant typeface format.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with these 3 or 4 files sometimes, the PFM, the AFM, that all together had to work to make it the typeface work, and it was tricky. In Windows, you had to have Adobe, what was the Adobe, I forgot, Adobe ATM, Adobe Type Manager.
Right, yes.
So
Adobe
you had to have
Type
this
Manager.
additional plugin and it was several steps to get these PostScript fonts to work. Luckily there's some changes which I'll talk about, but essentially the licensing, there was really only 2 kinds of license, and I didn't mention another because most of the people here aren't working at a printing press, but I mean, commercial printing, they licensed by the printer. So essentially you were licensing either numbers of desktop, or you're licensing how many printers you had. And it wasn't about, like a laser printer. This was licensing actual image setters and plates. I mean, these large scale commercial print operations. So that was essentially what you had. I mean, the web was still young in the sense that there was no way for you to use live type on the web. There was no web fonts. There was no mobile apps. And so this was really the licensing for graphic designers. And then we started to come up with some other licenses like around that time, which is for PDF. PDF became very popular for transporting information, and then e-publication. So then we were allowing a license so that you could embed a font into an ebook or an e-journal. And a lot of times it was a PDF or another format which would take the font data and embed it so that the reader was getting the most optimized view. And that was essential to have that type, the type in there to make sure that it was clear and concise no matter what size it was read at or no matter what device. And now kind of brings us to, I'm going to go actually to server rights. And so this was something I'd say around the early 2000s, where you had web-to-print type companies that were looking to have typefaces built into their web application. So I think a great example of this is web-to-print. And now you've been to a lot of photo sites, photo sharing sites, or possibly public sites where you're able to create and customize things like stationery, greeting cards. It's a huge industry. Wedding invitations, baby showers, all that kind of stuff. These type of sites were looking to have more customizable views instead of here's this fixed template. Here's you can make your own template, and also now we have a couple dozen typefaces for you to use. So having that menu there, and so it could be, you could be creating a T-shirt.
I remember printing checks that way.
Exactly, and that's another industry that's taken advantage of having those typefaces as part of a menu that gives the creative control back to the customer that was on their site. So we created a license specifically for that, and many foundries have this, and it's a server license. So essentially, it's fonts that are used on a web server so that they're able to, again, get people's customizable intake. So. And then this happened, I would say, somewhere around 2010 was web fonts became a reality. So prior to that, I think everyone knows here, web fonts was more of a dream. But as if you wanted to have type on a website, there were 2 options. You could use system fonts. So there was basically the web safe fonts, as you call them. So you could use things like Times New Roman or Verdana or Georgia. And Arial. The reason being is that these typefaces were pretty much resident on almost any device that you're going to run into. And so if you wanted to keep the the SEO of your web page, making sure things are searchable, scalable, selectable, you would essentially have to use a system font. Now the problem is that any brand work you have drops out, and you're stuck with typefaces that don't represent your brand.
Right.
And no one uses Times New Roman for their brand. No one uses.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
So
Let's just say that very few use things like Times New Roman and Arial, and so you're basically doing a disservice to your brand. Now, if you wanted to get around that and you did want to use your typeface,
now I'm having to move over so you're in the camera. There you go. Go ahead.
Now, the other option, if you did want to have your typeface, your brand typeface, as part of your design, you wanted to have it on maybe say the navigation or the headers or even body copy or wherever you wanted to place it, you would actually have to use images. And obviously, images are just they're a time concern. It ends up being a cost concern, and there's no real SEO there. So unless you're spending double the time to make sure that images have information planted underneath them, like, you know, searchability and things like that, it's basically a big zero on your page. So it might look okay, but until someone zooms in or zooms out, then it loses all, you know, it becomes pixelated, or the image just basically fails. So web fonts really was kind of the holy grail, and because of you know, a few different organizations on the WPC, basically everyone coming to an agreement that web fonts should be allowed, and that different font formats would be allowed because different companies have their different font formats, then it truly became a standard in 2010.
Yeah, that wasn't very long ago.
It wasn't very long ago, and I mean, it feels like a million years, and in a certain way, it is a long. It has been a long time, but yeah. So back then we had, you know, the formats were EOT, SVG, TTF, and WAF, and now I think most people are migrating to WAF too, which is a new format that, you know, these formats are fantastic. They prevent, you know, they prevent things like theft, and, you know, they have some encryption. It's basically all the different browser companies agreed that this is something that they wanted to do. So I think I would like to say that web fonts was absolutely pivotal in where we are today, and things like without web fonts, there's no responsive web. There's no responsive web design. There's no you know, this HTML5 thing. I mean, one of the key items of HTML5 is things like CSS3 is web fonts, because that's kind of the cornerstone for a lot of that. And I've had people in this industry that web fonts having, you know, being available was kind of the starting point.
Right.
And it took a lot of you know, organizations some time, maybe a year or two, to turn around. But I think right now we're at, I mean, almost every company is using web fonts, almost all of them. I mean, the adoption rate is, you know, it's got to be beyond 70% at this point. And
every large company.
yeah, I mean, the amount of page views has been, you know, outstanding, and, you know, we have all of our typefaces available as web fonts. You know, there's tens of thousands. I mean, right now there's hundreds of thousands of web fonts, and there used to just be zero. Yeah. And it's kind of fascinating that we've come that far so quickly. And, you know, we've done things like optimize those for screens. So we didn't just take our library and convert it to web font formats. We put most of them through, you know, various optimization programs so that they were going to look good at small point size or low resolution Windows screens. So a lot's happened, and it's kind of shaped to where we are today. So I think there's one other here. Hold
on, let me 1 second. So you're looking in your slides?
Yep, just
okay,
look. Yeah,
so your slides,
and so I think after web fonts, we can talk about mobile apps. And again, that's pretty simple. I mean, essentially, we've been licensing typefaces as a company to software companies since day one. I mean, and, you know, people like the printer industry, and, you know, this is more on the development side. Again, I know I'm talking to mostly designers here, but, you know, we've been responsible for licensing type for the printer industry, for, you know, so, and copiers, machines, basically anywhere there's a display, you know, navigation devices, and, you know, that's a whole nother talk. But, you know, I'm sure you've heard people's talks that from Monotype, especially from Nadine Shaheen, where she talks about at a glance, which is, you know, how we, you know, basically created typefaces that are meant to, so that your eye spends less time on the road and more time on the road and less time staring at a device. So a lot of that is around legibility and glance time, and as it happens to be, you know, in traffic. So again, a whole nother talk, but I just wanted to kind of just, you know, it's pretty widespread how, you know, how far that, you know, type is part of everyday life and everyday machines that you're working with. But we wanted to make things easier for as brands started to develop more customer touch points to things like mobile apps. You know, a lot of them are, you know, they might be for your bank, they might be for your favorite band, they might be for you know, one of your hobbies. Basically, it's another way for brands to be in touch with you on your daily basis. So we've essentially made it very easy to license typefaces for your for your app design. So that's something that is currently available now. And finally, I'd like to talk about rich media ads. So this kind of piggybacks off of web fonts, and again, it started by web fonts and HTML5, but you know, as standards have shifted, and I think I could probably move the slide. So, you know, a big part of it is the demise of Flash. Yeah. So Flash is no longer supported by Google Display Network, and that's a huge chunk of display for mobile ads. So this is a huge part of the importance now of using live type inside of advertising. So, prior, years ago, it was kind of similar to the way web fonts came about. It was images.
Mm-hmm.
So you had these banner ads, which are basically static banner ads or images or something that was animated in Flash. The problem with Flash, as you can see right here through this real basic timeline, is that there's a huge lack of support issues, and now it's almost nil. So, I mean, this goes back, 4 or 5, 8 years. That the iPhone, when that came out, there was there was this huge kind of I call it beef, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it, but essentially, Apple was basically like, we're not really investing in this technology, and so that was kind of, I think, what started it. And then,
definitely.
And then when HTML5 comes out, you have more options. The problem was the adoption wasn't so quickly because it was a little more Wild West. So people were kind of scared to jump headfirst into doing their websites and everything with HTML5 just because there wasn't a ton of standards or a lot of how do I do this. And I think Flash, it was very clear how to do it. So we're moving to that, and let me just kind of move on here. And so, very similar to how web fonts help the efficiency of a website, using fonts in digital ads is also a very efficient. It's a very efficient practice. So here's just a quick kind of diagram of how that works. I mean, essentially, you're building one ad, and because of HTML5, that ad's going to be able to perform and function with all these type of things. So, no matter where your ad's being reached.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like you mentioned, geolocation, positioning, creative optimization, creative pricing, all these things are going to help an ad campaign, and you also get all these analytics back. So, previously, again, using things like Flash, all those different, that it's not rich media. You're not getting as much, feedback. You're not getting as much you can't put out as much information with that. It's very much a static. It's very much a static thing.
Is it because when you serve the fonts, then you're getting the actual analytics back on how many?
Yeah, you're getting that. Plus, the font itself has the whole font files there, and I think that's the key item. So when you're using Flash, it's a little more tricky to be able to make that content dynamic and rich media. Versus same with static images. I mean, it's fixed, and now, I mean, you can target an ad to someone. It can have their name listed there, and the font's going to write their name, and it can say where they are, and based on where they are, the typeface can, based on the way that the ad is programmed, it can say a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is all just
scary.
It's scary, but it's also, I mean, if you're a brand, and I think the most important part is that I'll kind of go through some more slides here, but. Mm-hmm. Again, I think this kind of repeats what I said before, which is just about how June 30th was really the cutoff date. And it looks like they'll stop displaying previously uploaded Flash again in 2017. So for a lot of people who, if anyone writes these kind of ads, this is a good warning.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And here's kind of a great slide. It explains, why web fonts or using fonts in digital ads is helpful. Again, you can use system fonts for ads, and I'm not going to, rule out, I'm quite aware that people use Google fonts. Google Web Fonts is heavily used by all sorts of different designers and brands. But, I would put Google fonts in the system fonts category, which is, yes, they're crisp, dynamic, and efficient because you're getting all the benefits of having live type. However, it's not on brand, it's not consistent. Unless you've set your brand to be a Google font, which some people have, and some of those fonts are great, fantastic, of course. I mean, we've had our, we've them. I mean, but at any event, I think that using a Google font and a system font, you're kind of missing the point of having that brand message carried all the way down through, all the way to a tiny little ad. And if you're a brand manager, a creative director, an art director, and you have this amazing vision for yourself or a client or whoever your customer is, and you build these beautiful guidelines and you put so much time, thought, and money into this, wouldn't you want that to make it all the way down to every little customer touch point, including the ad. And that's kind of, I think, the main point of having, web fonts and ads is that this is a reality now, and people are catching on pretty quickly. And again, people have been using images too, but images, now you're getting rid of the SEO parts, like the dynamic, efficient, searchable, selectable, and it doesn't have the on-screen legibility that you get with the live type. So, web fonts cover all of those. And so it's pretty much a no-brainer, but I think it's still relatively new. And so I think a lot of folks are going to start using this relatively soon if they haven't already, because I think there's just more attention now on this, the final product. And, when people are doing these really expensive brand refreshes and brand mandates, these type of things are now, they're put under a microscope. I think before they weren't, and now I've noticed it in-house at some brands. They're concerned with this. They're not sending this out to a small agency or a small, push ad agency that just pushes ads. And, it's like a game of telephone. By the time it ends at the fourth set of hands, who's supposed to create these ads for you, they might have lost, a good amount of some of their brand guidelines. So by then they're like, oh, use Google or just use whatever, fonts is out there. And I think if someone knew about that at the very high level of the global brand position or creative director, they'd be like, I can't believe you're doing that. And we've done all this work. This is supposed to be throughout every touch point, so there's a consistent message across everything we're touching. So just I wanted to jump to, so we're done with that for now. So just those are kind of the license types, and I spent a lot of time on that last one just because I wanted to explain it further for people that weren't familiar with that. And it's not just something Monotype's doing right now, but we do have that available for all of our licensing. And
is that just for Monotype, or is that the different types of license types that any company that we go to?
That's how we, and if you went to, for example, fonts.com, which is our flagship site, you'll actually see next to any of our IP that all of those are listed there, all 6 of them. There's desktop, there's web fonts, there's mobile ads, there's server, there's ebook, and then finally there's digital ads. So that's how we look at it. And Monotype isn't just a foundry. We're also, we're a reseller, and we basically take on, I guess, the commerce on for a huge amount of type foundries, hundreds. So when they sign up with us, their fonts are also placed into these buckets. And I think it's really, really helpful that, you can go to a site that has, 200,000 web fonts, and those fonts all have the same type of buckets for licensing. And so, yeah, there's other foundries that might have some other, type of licenses that we might not, but we basically have any type of license that you can imagine is in one of those buckets. So if anything was unclear, I'd be happy to answer questions about that. And so now that I got that cleared up, I wanted to talk briefly about a technology that we developed called Sky Fonts, and it sounds really cool. Like it's some Star Warsy thing. Like their fonts, where are they in the sky? So essentially what we set out to do was create a virtual font folder. And the main idea was this virtual font folder was a fast, easy delivery mechanism for type, and also a way for you to sync with a type subscription. So I think I can, I'll kind of stop there and move into a subscription.
Okay.
Because this is something that's also relatively new, I think, in the type world, is licensing fonts for subscription. So we have something called a Monotype library subscription, and it's available directly on fonts.com. And I think it's fantastic in that for years, one of the hurdles for designers is to have, a large palette of type in front of them without paying tens of thousands of dollars. So, up until the subscription, if you wanted to license a font library, and you still can, and, larger organizations, agencies, brands do license, these kind of permanent license, this is more of an access fee. So you have access to all of Monotype's IP, again, thousands and thousands of typefaces, and you pay monthly or annual rate. And I think what's important about this is that if you're a heavy type user, you no longer have to, acquire some package for $1,000 for one type family, only to find out that the comp you made is rejected. You created this mock-up for a client or for, whatever it may be, and you're going to switch directions 2 months later. Now you're out $1,000 you spend on that. Yes, you have it in your bucket, but it's no longer, you're no longer using it right then and there for the client. And so that was created headaches for a long time. And, people have been asking us how can we better access your type library without paying this giant upfront cost that's unaffordable to a small type of designers or teams. So we developed this Monotype library subscription not even that long ago. I believe it was earlier, maybe 9 months ago.
Yeah, and relatively new.
It's relatively new. It's been absolutely huge since it's launched. Awesome. And there's more pricing information, but the idea is that it's $15 a month per person. And I mean, if you build that out, I mean, that's probably that's less than one font family costs that much per year. And so now you have access to all these typefaces that you can use in all your projects and all your design explorations, all your mock-ups, comps, any type of concept, and it's great because you don't have to fork up the money up front. You're essentially have an access fee.
Right. Yeah. And how did you get this? Are you gonna?
Yeah, we'll talk about how it gets it. So we try to make it kind of simple, in that you basically install. I just mentioned Skyfonts. So you'd install the Skyfonts plugin, which is just a small plugin. It sits on your machine, and basically what it does is it syncs with our service. So you'll have a set of credentials on fonts.com that most people already do, whether they've bought a typeface or bought a subscription. Using that same set of credentials, you log into Skyfonts, and it links directly with your fonts.com. Actually, Skyfonts links with fonts.com, MyFonts, and Google. So it links across all those different services. So if you use any of those, Skyfonts works across all of them, and you can actually within Skyfonts manage your different services. So essentially, you have this plugin sitting there, and as you're browsing through fonts.com and find a typeface, say you see Avenir Next, I'd like to use that. There's a little button there that lets you sync, and you'll see the Skyfonts thing maneuver on the top of your screen, and now your typeface is available through any application. And it's in it. And the cool thing is it happens like that. You don't actually have to go through the whole installation process, because essentially it's not an asset. It's sitting there on your machine and causing some a IT person grief. They're like, oh my God, there's a font file on your computer. This is no longer in that realm. It's there, and you can work offline. So it's essentially on your machine, but it's encrypted. There's no way they can access it. Cool. So you are now synced, and you can sync it across more than one machine, which has always been an issue, and most people have more than one machine. So now if you're counting, you can sync across 2 machines. So if you have a home computer and a work computer, which is kind of the easiest thing, or a laptop and a desktop, you can sync across those. And then, if you need a third, well, but you can't do that. But what you can do is, I don't need it on this one. You can unsync it from there using manage it through Skyfonts. You can say, I no longer want it synced on this one. I want it here. So you can always have 2 computers with your account synced.
Very cool. As long as you have the internet, you're good.
Yeah. So this screen right here kind of gives an example. If you see in the very top corner, that's what the Skyfonts plugin is going to present to you when you sync a font. So someone was browsing fonts.com. They took the typeface Postorama by our own Jim Ford, an amazing typeface, which is amazing, by the way. You can sync, and it's going to show you that it's syncing, and now it's part of your palette of fonts.
Very cool.
And again, this isn't just a static collection. It's growing rapidly. So anything that's new to us or that we've developed, we're always constantly adding to font families, reviving type families. In the last couple of years, there's been these things like Avenir Next and Din Next, and there's new Haas Grotesque. So every time there's a new typeface family or design, we're adding that. We're constantly adding typefaces. So essentially, you're getting access to these fonts right as soon as they become commercially available, which is huge, because you don't have to go download the font and do all this other stuff. You just sync it with Skyfonts.
Well, for us, we really love the classics.
Of course.
So
yes.
that's what we would value.
Exactly. And so, I think part of Monotype's, design mandate is to keep the classics alive, make them more accessible and more optimized. So a lot of these new typefaces they have the DNA of the original font.
Yes.
We also have these fonts called e-text fonts, which were made specifically for ebooks.
Okay.
And so we've taken things like Bembo and Helvetica and a couple others, and we've basically redrawn them completely. While they still have the same DNA as the original, now they lend themselves better to reading thousands and thousands of pages of books. I mean, and that's where that technology comes in the most, when you're reading a huge amount of content on a screen. Right. So outside of those are all available too, and as well, you get all the weights from different families. So this subscription isn't just like, oh, you get just a couple weights. You get every weight of every family, every version, every alternate, and all the different swatches, ligatures, and of course language support. So as I mentioned, we have Chinese fonts, we have things like Thai fonts, we have Arabic fonts and Hebrew fonts. We have a huge amount of global type support fonts. Right. Most of them designed in-house too, designed by people like Nadine and Toshi and some of our other designers worldwide. So that's kind of what you get. And again, this is if you go to the site, this is what you're going to see. And of course, we have subscriptions for teams too, with larger groups, and it allows collaboration between those groups too. So it's not just for one designer working by themselves. It can be for whole teams that they can be working together. So we've actually taken it a step farther, and again, this is based on the portal that we have for the library. But now it's taken all those licenses, which I was displaying before, and wrapping it up into one license. So we have, as Monotype, we do have a lot of clients and customers that are massive, and they need every type of license that I mentioned. They need all of those. Right. So they'll need everything from desktop to their website, to their branded mobile apps, to their branded digital ads, to their services, which they have online. A lot of financial services, and all the way to publishers who need ebooks. We have basically an enterprise-wide license, and this covers all of that usage, and it's a single fee. So yes, it is still for a very small company versus a very large one, it's still relative. So this does depend on certain factors of usage, things like impressions, page views, distribution. But for the most part, the idea is you don't have to pick 6 licenses. You can have one that has all of that built in. And this is really great when you're setting a brand off to sea with your new brand guidelines and everything. This is an easy way to give them everything they need up front and do it all at once. And again, instead of spending all the time doing a whole bunch of licenses. So right. It really helps with things like workflow. You're engaging with a brand, and you can tell them, here's the fonts, you can use it for everything. So they're using the same typeface across all these different mediums.
We need to tell our clients that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, that's relatively new too. Again, it's based off our Monotype library subscription. And, I think the goals that they're achieving, this is, I think some of the best things to communicate is that they're much faster to get these things to market and lower development costs. I mean, here's the fonts you need. Here's all the formats. Now start using them for everything. I mean, it's something to do right up front. When you start from the beginning and make sure that every touch point has those typefaces, you're reducing the risk of your branding consistency. And and eventually that's a cost that someone has to look at. What's the cost if this doesn't go out properly branded? What if this ad doesn't look right? What if this website doesn't have the right fonts? That's all a cost. There's a cost associated with that. It's a risk. And if you're taking all these steps up front to license everyone with the same fonts, that risk is taken away. And again, it makes worldwide brand experience and customer engagement much better. I mean, you're using typefaces that have huge wide array of language display. You're taking these things into consideration at the beginning. Essentially, you're doing everything you can to not only currently give everyone what they need, but I think the most important thing you'll see on this slide is future proofing. So you're setting your brand identity, and you're able to future proof it, because everything here is basically, this is what the future is. I mean, we're there. now. We're able to now say, this is what you're going to need to be successful in the future. So
makes it easier for clients and our companies.
Yeah, I mean, because everyone's looking to save time.
Sure.
Everyone's, risk of compliance, these are all the things that a company is very interested in when going to start one of these projects, a big brand refresh. Like, let's make sure, then now's a chance. Let's make sure we're covering all of these items. And again, type is not everything, but I think it's cornerstone to almost everything about a brand. So,
I think it's everything. But that's me.
If you ask us, it's everything. So and again, this goes back to my original slides. Here's the type of licenses, and with that standard desktop license that you were buying way back when, back in the 90s, you could really only do those top things, and now you can do all these other. You can use fonts across all these other use cases, and now we have a license that does all of it. So, again, this is how Monotype's been approaching it, and I think it's very valuable, and I think it's extremely helpful to creative people who are looking to kind of make their life easier and be able to access type easier, because almost all these things have been headaches, for everyone, and it's understandable. And so I think with some of these types of subscriptions, we're able to alleviate some people's general headaches, accessibility, save them time. I mean, I know there's so many, I've worked, in my role with so many people who at the 11th hour are calling me at 10 at night, like, oh my God, I need this font now. There's something that has to go out at midnight. And
really, do people call you at 10 at night asking about license?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And so
who are these people?
I don't want to name them.
Okay.
But I think now you're at, with something like a subscription, I mean, you have if someone changes direction on you, you're like, oh man, it's not this weight of Helvetica, it's that weight. Well, guess what? Now you have access to every single 100 something weights.
Great.
So I think we're trying to make people's lives easier, and I think the subscription's starting to catch on. I don't, a lot of this is by word, or by, a lot of it's by, people who have access already to fonts.com who are finding this out. But, I think it's good for me to discuss this here, because it does tie into licensing in general and the types of licensing that are available today.
That's because Sky Fonts, so he says that they like it. Yeah.
And the ultimate goal, I've already mentioned this, it's just achieving brand consistency. And so that's kind of the ultimate goal. And that's what we've set out to do here. And this is, we'll probably grow with this as well. But for now, we think we have something great that can help people access huge amounts of typefaces in one place. Okay. So that's pretty much what I had on my agenda.
Oh, okay. Did you have another slide after this one?
I did. And this is kind of aside from this, there's another tool that we have, which is available for free. This is a free tool you can grab. It's called Typecast. And I'm not sure if anyone's used this before. Typecast is a browser-based web design application. So this was also, a child of, the web fonts and responsive web design. Right. And the idea here is that why not start in a browser with something that's going to be displayed in a browser, meaning a website or digital ad. And Photoshop, which is has been long since the ultimate tool, the design exploration tool. This is how you present a concept of a website. Photoshop is great. I mean, it's still going to always be used for so many different reasons, but we feel that using this with Photoshop or even on its own is a huge help. And here's why. When you start using this, and again, Typecast had access not just to fonts.com fonts, but fonts from other services too. So there's Typekits in there, and Google, and I think 6 total services. So you're accessing hundreds of thousands of typefaces, and you can literally you can download, you can go in there and sign up, and you can start designing layouts immediately, web layouts. And what the key thing is that you're designing, have always been designing as a designer, visually, graphically. And so all those tools are there, but what's happening in the background is all the HTML and CSS is happening under the hood. Right. So you don't have to be, you don't have to spend your time in there if you don't want to. I mean, there's developers, and you're a graphic, you're a designer, you're creative. You're not necessarily someone that wants to be in the coding. Yeah. So everything you're doing here visually is creating a file in the background, and it can easily, you can anytime look at it, and anytime you can, if you're happy with it, you can wrap this up and send it to a developer. You can also create different layouts which work over Photoshop, so you can use them both together. So, you know, you might be more comfortable using some of the other graphic assets or elements in Photoshop. Now you can lay over the type stuff, and again, when you're done, you actually have something. You have code. Versus when you're, you know, if you're just using real traditional Photoshop, you just have a, you know, you have a PL. I mean, you're basically, you don't have anything really. You just have a someone has to go and dissect all of that,
right,
reverse engineer it, and come up with the development. So when you start in Typecast, you're actually giving someone real code to work with so that they can recreate that.
You're doing a little bit of control.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And again, I mean, I could talk for hours and hours, but I'll stop now so that we have some time for some questions and any thoughts, or, you know, any other tips, or is my beard too short, not long enough? Is my head too shiny?
It's because you can see yourself here. So, all right. So we have some questions.
Okay.
All right. So we'll just go answer questions if that's okay. And then hopefully, I mean, I have some questions, but I'll do it afterwards, okay?
Okay.
So can you talk about licensing for commissions versus licensing for commercial available fonts?
Maybe I'm not sure what that means. Is that for the designer or licensing for? Oh, I think you meant for, is this question around creating new fonts? Or
yeah, good question.
Like, is this for like custom bespoke fonts?
Can you let us know, Dick, here on either in the chat or in the comments? Yeah, let us know exactly. Can you talk about licensing for commissions versus licensing for commercial available fonts?
So
from the designer's point of view.
Well, I mean, I can go into from the designer. Yeah, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk about that exactly.
All right, that's all right.
You know, I know that type designers have choices. They can license them themselves. They can license to a reseller like MyFonts or fonts.com, or they can, you know, submit it to a foundry. And I'm sure there's differences. I just don't know those exactly, and I don't know if I'm qualified to talk about that. But there are options. You know, a type designer can, you know, can kind of do what they want, I believe. You know, but there's you know, if you want to, there's obviously huge benefits of working with a foundry or a reseller, because their reach is massive, you know, reaching huge amounts of people versus trying to, I guess, market them on yourself, which can be an uphill battle because you're dealing with, you know, where are people going to find out about your stuff? And, you know, so there's I guess there's arguments both ways, but, you know, when you're on a place like MyFonts, where, you know, MyFonts, I think, has amazing discovery tools. If you go to MyFonts and you're looking to do exploration, I think that they're set up with some really great search tools and algorithms that, I mean, I've used it myself and I've been, you know, pretty happy with the results. And fonts.com too. I mean, these sites have a lot of kind of content around type and type designers, and you can find out more info. And also, you know, searching for, as simple as searching for keywords. So,
right. Did I answer that? I hope so.
We can go back to it, of course. So let me start the MyFonts one.
Oh, so you're done with this one, okay?
Yeah. So I don't, as far as, you know, independence.
Are you talking about this one? This are you?
Yeah. So,
okay, so let me ask it.
Okay.
So can you suggest what to have in mind when writing a license for my own typefaces? And what is the smartest way to protect my own type designs?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
So again, I think this is one of those things where you might want to partner up with us. There's so many type foundries right now, and a lot of them have their own identity. And I mean, a lot of times when it's funny now when I see typefaces, new type designs, my brain naturally says, "Oh, well, that looks like it from this foundry." So I mean, I think there is a great option to buddy up or to partner with an established foundry, because, you know, they have a, you know, they have interest in keeping things properly licensed and copyrighted and trademarked, and making sure that that typeface is properly like marketed as well. So let's see, what else is the question? Yeah, I mean, to protect your own typeface designs, I mean, you would copyright copyright and trademark those. So
You really?
yeah, you can copy and trademark fonts. Yes.
Wow.
But like I said, it's a pain, and font foundries are better at doing that because they do that.
Right.
But that's the best way to protect it. You know, I think, and again, I think working with other foundries and resellers is a great way to not just protect it, but to also get it out there in the world. I mean, nothing is, you know, I think a lot of the first place people go when they go to some sites is new releases. And if you're one of those new releases, I mean, you're now that typeface is being seen by thousands of people.
Right.
So cool.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Marco, I hope that answers your question. Okay, good answer. Excellent. Good. All right. So font licensing seems to be pretty difficult. I've been wondering recently what happens when I buy a font, use it in a commercial product, let's say a flyer, and then a customer wants to keep an open file with the font I bought. That's a great question.
That is a good question.
Yeah. Can I freely give them a file with a font, or should I delete it from my hard drive?
That's a good question, and it's I know it does sound difficult because, you know, what happens when it leaves your hands when it needs to. So, you know, to have a typeface sitting on your, you know, to have a desktop font sitting on your machine, you need a license, and I'd say even uninstalled, you need a license too. So if you're sending your client a license, you should say, hey, you need to acquire a license for this because now you have that font. And especially if there's a potential for them to need to use that to output something, right? Or to modify some work that you've done. You might have created some content for them that they haven't, you know, they have the ability to change in the future, right? So they need that font file so that they can do the changes. They're going to need a license. It's really that simple, and you know, they can buy that font license for whatever, you know, it's one font, it might be $50 or something like that, and now they're squared away for any time they want to change it for the rest of time.
So then, if that's the case, do we use the MLS? Do we rent the MLS for developing the design, and then we give them a physical? We have
so
them
yeah, the
purchase
MLS, I would say the MLS is more for the actual creative person, for the designer, for the, you know, the actual, you know, the person who's doing, you know, the work. When it gets to you know, your client or a customer, they don't really need that. I mean, you've set their brand for them. You've dictated what they need, and at that point for them, they're going to need a license, of course, but it's based on their usage, not yours. So you have your little, you know, palette, your toolbox per se of fonts that you pay for and you use to create content. But once that's handed off to a customer or a client,
they have to purchase.
Yeah, so then they would be responsible for, okay, we have this many pages for our website. We're creating 2 mobile apps. We need it on 10 desktops so that our marketing people and in-house designers can continue on using your branded, you know, content, and then, you know, be able to make anything in the future. So that's typically the practice. You know, you have the people that are the creatives, and then you have the client that's also going to need, you know, they need their own license. But, you know, again, the point of the MLS is really for the designer themselves.
Right,
so, and again, I think the first part of the question. So when you create something that's, you know, static, like, you know, you create a banner or even, you know, digital artwork that's, you know, a GIF for a printed book or a magazine or a billboard, all that stuff is done, one and done. I mean, there's no, once you've created that and you can send it to someone, so long as they don't have the font file, they can use that artwork forever.
Right. So, but the flyer, basically, you can't really give them the font.
You can, as long as they've showed you that they have a license. And that's basically, it says it right in our license, so long as they provided they have purchased a license.
Okay. So as long as
I didn't want
to font police there.
Exactly, and I didn't want to dig too deep into the nuts and bolts of the license. I know it's kind of boring to talk about legal stuff with people, so
well, we
you
should know it.
We should. I mean, that's a whole nother talk, and I could do that too, but I didn't want to go super deep into it. Oh, and thank you, Teresa, for answering the question there.
Yeah, let me finish this one. So then Teresa says, hey, Marco, you should reach out to Stu. Got it. Excellent. So Clayman says, you mentioned my fonts. The Monotype subscription model is great.
How did we miss that question?
I don't know. I'm just going for what's up.
Sorry, Clayman.
Yeah, so the Monotype subscription model is a great deal for creative professionals, but don't you think it puts the small independent foundries in kind of a bad position?
Well, I can let's see. So the reason that we're able to do this with our type is that we own, we have copyright and trademark for Monotype fonts. And again, Monotype fonts can be things from Monotype, ITC, Linotype, Bitstream, Font Shop, a number of the foundries that make up the Monotype umbrella. And because of that, we have extreme flexibility with those typefaces that, a smaller designer might not want. So it might not be in their interest actually to be part of this because, many times we find that, a smaller design foundry or individual designers, they might feel that their typefaces are lost in this ocean and that they might, they might want to be licensing kind of, to be featured as their own type of thing because, while we do have thousands of fonts, I'm not sure what the future is. That's all I can say. So there might be a possibility of other foundries being part of subscriptions in the future. Again, I don't know if that's true or not. So I can't really answer that fully. But I don't think it does hurt anyone. I think it's just a way that we're able to package all of our IP specifically geared towards creatives for their usage, and again to have a larger palette when they're accessing type to start a project. So I don't really know. I don't know if I can really answer. Again, that might be something that I'm not qualified. I don't have those figures in front of me to tell you if it's what puts independent foundries in a bad position. But I do know independent foundries are doing great right now. I mean, so many of our if you just go to fonts.com and my fonts, so many of the top sellers are from all over the place. Yeah, there's some of our fonts in there, of course. We've released things like New Haus Grotesque and Posturama and New Haus Unica, which is the cross between Universe and Helvetica. So I mean, some amazing type that were listed on there because they're top sellers. But there's rotating, constant rotating of independent foundries that are finding the top spot for our searches. And so I mean, it's right there. Everything that I mentioned is right there on the website. So yeah.
And Cecilia says, I would say no. I use the Monotype subscription and also look for independent fonts from certain projects. And as a graphic designer, we do the same thing too if we want something really unique. Yeah,
because exactly. I mean, it's natural for people to say, well, you know what? I have a lot of my needs covered by this fantastic, huge library.
Sure.
But of course, I mean, if people need to, I understand. I mean, a couple 10,000 fonts or 12,000, that's not, for some people, it's not enough. And so you understand that there's other type out there, and we try to make that available through our sites as well. So.
I hope that answers it. The obvious fact is that after the subscription emerged, most of the bestsellers in my fonts are monotypes. Is that true?
Wait, where's that from?
He's saying right here. Yeah.
Is that after subscription emerged, most of the bestsellers in my fonts are monotypes? I don't know. I don't know how any of that works. So, so I mean, I do know for a fact that people, when we do launch a typeface, a lot of people are, hot to use it. And I think it goes back to familiarity. A lot of things like New Haus Grotesque and New Haus Unica, while they're new, I mean, they're based on the DNA of something that's, part of that Swiss type kind of revolution. And so naturally, I think people flock to that. But at the same time, I see some of the, I see these top seller fonts of things, hand lettering. So you see a lot of, the very whimsical hand lettering, sign painting, like these things are just selling like crazy. And it's clear right there. So, I think we're basically, our top sellers represent what's happening, what people are buying. And so.
And design.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not,
I mean, Laura Worthington's script fonts are
Laura's stuff. I mean, she's featured on my fonts. There's cool little like drawing of her, and her typefaces are constantly in the fold, especially in the like the web to print world. A lot of web to print, they have to they license a lot of the standards. Like Futura and Frutiger and Avenir, but then you get to a place where when you're customizing, you want something to be handwritten, and so that's why you'll find a lot of the hand lettering and handwritten type of typefaces, casual scripts becoming increasingly popular, because I think right now we're in a world where personalization is just huge. I mean, I feel like the last several years with things like the original Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, things like that, it's very much you're no longer, your identity is no longer in type. Your identity is about, it's like more of a resume type thing, right? your words, but not the actual look and feel of the words. And so now you're seeing things like, Snapchat changed their look and feel, and Facebook has enabled more type to be used for branded things. So I feel like we're moving more towards a world where people can express their personalities or their brand through more type choices versus being kind of stuck into one thing. And so
Okay, we're on. Here we go. Oh my God, I'm sorry, guys. We just lost you. We got disconnected, but we're here. So, yes, still reconnecting. Okay, can you hear us? Yes, good. Oh my God, we're back on. And you're emailing now. Dude. No. Sorry, we're in the middle of something. Oh my gosh, and it just went out.
So do we keep track of the?
Yeah, no, so Teresa was really good. Thank you, Victoria. So Teresa was saying that for me, consider it like having basics in a wardrobe, like your shirt and jeans and underwear.
Teresa, that's a great.
And then you add your other boundaries for style. Oh my God.
That's perfect. All right, so I think
we're done with that.
I believe we're in the middle of the question about type optimization. I started discussing hinting. Now this was.
This is not the right one, huh?
We're talking about the hinting.
Oh, hinting. How come that was not there? Okay.
Yep. So just to get back, hinting was a very, again, time and resource heavy kind of technology and service that we provided for, type essentially for older versions of Windows. And the reason being is that the way that Windows and Mac, render is much different. And so hinting was never really necessary for Apple. It was for Mac. It was all for Windows, but that's most of the world is working off of Windows. And so, the question is around, is this going to be, a thing? And I think yes. And the reason being is there's still some minimums that we do. I mean, almost everything that we've ever put out there, as a web font has had some sort of hinting. I mean, we're in a better place now where there's automatic hinting, there's machine hinting, and there's much more efficient technical practices which provide optimization for typefaces without spending 40 hours on one weight, which was years ago. That's what it took. If you were a brand and you wanted to make sure that your typeface looked rendered properly at small point sizes on low output screens, then it cost a lot. It cost a lot of money because we just had resources working on this for weeks. So I think it's always going to be there, but it's now manual hinting will probably be gone. And unless it's for very specific circumstances. And again, manual hinting is more likely to be used in a more complex visual. If you're using it for serifs and even most sans serifs, it's not required. But if the typeface might be more display or funky or whimsical, then it might take a little more work. But essentially, we have, at least we provide some automated hinting services to everything that we output, and it looks fantastic. So, so the question is, yeah, most manual hinting will be going away because everyone's racing to have this, what it used to be called Retina display. I don't know what the highest quality is called now, but essentially, these devices are the resolution's outstanding, and so having a necessity for things like manual hinting becomes pretty much useless. So.
Can you talk a little bit about what hinting is for those who don't know?
Yeah, hinting is the practice of it's both a visual and a technical practice of essentially using language, basically using code to describe where pixels have to move at certain point sizes. So when you've probably seen this in your life where you're looking at a small point size typeface and it starts to fail. And by fail, I mean characters run into each other. The E will close up. You have things looking like a different character.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have, a nice slender L that all of a sudden is double the size. What happens is that pixels need to be instructed what to do. Mm-hmm. And in general, at larger point sizes, because of the outlines, it's pretty much it's easy. But at smaller point sizes, you have to redescribe the font. So essentially, when you're looking at something, Arial has been hinted beyond almost any other font that's out there. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of hours of hinting to make Arial actually look good all the way down to the tiniest point size. And at some point, it doesn't look like Arial, but it looks like letters that you can read. Yeah. And that's kind of what hinting does. It takes into consideration the design of the typeface, but also has to make some compromises at small points so that you can still read it. So that's kind of what hinting is. And again, it's something that is going away.
Jason says it helps to keep the counters open. Got it. Okay, cool.
This next one?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh my gosh, we got a lot of questions while we were gone.
How do foundries
like Monotype enforce type licensing? Is that something that font foundries do?
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer is yes. I mean, everyone has, a right to, look around, and
mm-hmm.
and that's pretty much all you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know every font foundry has an interest in making sure that their fonts being properly licensed. I don't think we approach it like as a police state type of thing, font police, but wherever we see whatever you want to call it, a breach of contract,
mm-hmm.
or wherever you see, I'm trying to think of the legal word right now, but it's a legal word of being bad. I don't know. Wherever
criminal activity.
I wouldn't. It's not something that we spend a huge amount of time looking for, but a lot of times it's clear, it's obvious. I mean, you'll be on a website like, oh, I don't think they have a license, and you can do some very quick research and find out if they do or do not. And it's not something you're spending all day doing, and to me, it's not so much. I don't think it's as much of a. Of course, we're going to reach out, but the idea isn't to be much of a slap on the hand. It's be like, wow, well, first of all, it's actually great that we're really happy they're using our type.
Right.
However, because you're using it this way, it's not optimized. You might be using like a hacked version, or a homemade version. Someone combine some tools, and
mm-hmm.
they might be able to say take a program that you can just download and make web fonts from a desktop font. There's a huge amount of problems with that. And so, I mean, sometimes I can see it right away. I'll look at the site and say, wow, that's... So not only is it a chance for them to, kind of come clean and be legal, but they're also, I think it's a great time for them to say, take a look at their brand and say, wow, we could do a better job with this. And, again, I look at it more as an opportunity for people to make their sites better, their brand better,
right.
Than it is to just, slap someone on the wrist, because, I mean, no one really wants that. But of course it's in everyone's best interest to be optimally legal. And if we do find issues, we'll reach out,
But the foundries do the enforcement, right? It's not
Absolutely.
Necessarily distributors, right?
Yeah, it's mostly the foundries, because, a lot of these foundries, they're basically just a channel for commerce. So,
mm-hmm.
The people aren't going to call you probably from my fonts and say, hey, but, the people who run the foundries, or people who represent them, they have a right to look at their own fonts. And if they see something that they think is an issue, they should definitely bring it up with, if you're a type designer and you see something that you don't think is right, tell your type foundry, tell the person that's managing. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, it's a problem, but I think now, because it's more accessible, and I think, back in the day when you had to spend tens of thousands of dollars on buying fonts, it's not as much of an issue now. I mean, people are able to, I've seen sites and be like, oh, by the way, you have to pay $10 a month. And they're like, oh, okay. Right. I'm like, you're probably losing, you're getting less. It's, you're probably making more money by doing that, by spending $10 a month to buy an actual font license.
But it's just like music. Music is probably not being ripped off as much because of how easy it is to.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look. You can look at something like, you know, one of the MLS as something maybe like a Spotify, you know, where you're paying for access and you know you can use it offline. So there's some parallels. I mean, music is such a huge industry. You know, Type's more of like this, you know, community of designers helping the world communicate. So, but I do draw. There's a lot of things you can draw from music, right?
Yes, I think so. Okay, thank you, Maurice. All right. How did you get into type licensing, and how difficult was it for you to learn about it?
I wasn't really a type designer. I've never been a type designer. While I have a huge interest in type and graphic design, I actually in high school and college I took a lot of graphic design classes, and while I never pursued it as a career, it was always an interest of mine. Any kind of visual arts, you know, whether it was painting, I did a lot of painting. Some graphic design. You know, my dad was an artist, and so he rubbed off on me in a lot of different ways with his practice. You know, he even did sign painting. So, you know, it was always a huge interest of mine. And when I was kind of done college and looking for what to do with my life, I couldn't believe that there was a type font that, you know, this was basically in my backyard, Monotype, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm like. I can't, like, I've always, fonts have always been one of my favorite elements of graphic design. So
backyard, so you are.
It was when I was, you know, I'm from a town called Andover, Massachusetts, and it was in a part of kind of a corner of town like Wilmington, which is just next to that's where Monotype was when I started. And so I mean, it was a drive through my town, and I just couldn't believe that company was right there. I mean, I've known about the fonts, and so I was so excited. And so, you know, I started right off. You know, as soon as I got there, I picked up the Creative Alliance, which was the typeface at the time, typeface catalog at the time, and I just started going through, and I was blown away. And so, at that time, again, it was very simple. We were licensing for desktops and number of printers, and so. At the time, I was just like hungry for more. So anytime, you know, as soon as we started emailing fonts, and then there was all these other licenses, I would say I was in some cases was helping develop these licenses that now we use on a regular basis. I was there for the very beginning of that, working with some of the other sales reps and working with other, you know, people at Monotype to help even get these licenses launched. So it's very interesting to me, and you know, I'm friends with a lot of other designers, and I've always thought, you know, one of the most important things is I think these designers, I think what they do is have very valuable, and I think that they should be paid quite. You know, I think they're paid a lot for their work, and so, you know, my job has always been to keep that value very high. You know, whether it's custom type or licensing, you know, type from our designers. I mean, I think they should get the best value for that, and I think everyone agrees, and I think, you know, type designers, you know, want to hear that, and that's why that's kind of been driving me, is to just, you know, we have these amazing designs coming out, so, you know, try to get the best value for them and the designers and everyone. So
they need to get designers need to get paid.
Everyone said they do.
Excellent, cool. All right, I'm doing a book EPUB and printed for the first time, and wondering what kind of licensing issues I need to consider and worry about.
Sure. So if you're licensing it publishing it on your own, this is something that you can actually buy yourself. So like I said, all of our IP and many other Foundry's IP on fonts.com and MyFonts and Linotype is available for ebook license. So you'll see there's an actual ebook. There's an ebook icon underneath the type name. And while you're doing checkout, you can actually choose that too. Cool. And it's very simple. And now you might also be working with a publisher that's also licensed, that might have a license already or is taking care of that for you. In that case, you know, you might want to tell them what you're using and ask them if they have a license or what, because eventually someone's going to be publishing that. And if it's going to have a font embedded, then, you know, someone's gonna have to license it.
Right.
I'm not sure who, but it could be you, or it could be a publisher or the publisher on behalf of you.
Yeah. Does that help, Michelle? I know you said that we addressed this earlier, but I hope that. I guess it just depends.
We already talked about it.
Cool.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks. Awesome. Patrick says, when will we be able to buy a single font license for the entire office that we can check out as needed rather than installing on each machine?
That's probably not going to happen. I think no, I don't think so. And I think the reason that they've made this library subscription so inexpensive is just because of that. So essentially, typefaces, and this isn't just us, but I mean, every foundry, and I think no one was hot around the idea of having like a library book, that there's one book and 20 people get to, kind of use it whenever they want, because that's just not how software works. I mean, no one buys Office doesn't buy a license from Microsoft Word and then no one, everyone, whoever's using it, it's, it's typically, it's always around seats. And that's why the subscription was so low priced. It's like, now it's not just, one person, it's a whole office of people that can collaborate around a license, and not just one font, but, if there's, more than one font that they can all use. I mean,
unless you do the enterprise, right? If you do the enterprise, that
but that's all different types of licensing. But you can do the Monotype library subscription for a large group. And even then, even if you bought, even if there's 5 people and they're all paying $15 a month for a year, that's still probably the cost of like this, the whole family of fonts buy it once. So I think I don't think there's going to be anything like that. At least, I haven't seen any type foundries really about that.
But we never know because these, that's okay. So, but you never know because the business model for type keeps changing. I mean, just in the last few years. Man,
I think we're kind of at that place. So, I mean, this is, again, we're still early in it, but I think it's already been pretty successful, and then a lot of people have signed up, and that the people who have signed up are like, this is really easy.
Yeah, cool.
So.
Excellent. Yeah, so Brex says never say never, right? Never know. Maurice has another one. A lot of typeface creation tools seem to be just for Mac. What tools have you seen out there for Windows users who want to get into creating typefaces?
That's a great question too. So I don't know. I don't know a lot of people that do design on Windows. Okay. Do you? I mean, I don't know. You might be more qualified to answer the question than I am.
Yeah, we might have to.
Because again, not being a type designer, I only just get I know that for the most part, everyone and every level uses like a Font Lab.
Font Lab, there's RoboFont, there's Glyphs, and I know those are from Mac, but I don't know if there's any PC versions.
I don't know anything about PC versions of those, and I work with plenty of designers. I don't think I've seen any of them on a Windows machine. But again, I might, I don't really know too much about that. So
right, sorry, Marissa, we don't have that. So Font Lab. Okay, so Clement says Font Lab. Yeah, I know there is a Windows version of Font Lab. I mean, I was thinking maybe there's some way. Exactly, I'm not sure, but there could be possibly design tools coming online. I don't know any ones, roadmaps in terms of that. But there's a lot of design tools that are now cloud-based.
There's he just commented. So Font Lab does have Windows.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
I know. I don't know how they work price-wise. Is Glyphs less expensive than Font Lab? Is Font Lab seems like the Pro Tools. If I'm using a music analogy again, Pro Tools is kind of like the highest level that they use across Hollywood and studios in New York and everything. And I have Pro Tools to make my dance music, but I know the Font Lab is similar. That Font Lab is kind of a real robust program for people who are designing type and developing type. And before that, like it was like it was Fontographer.
Oh my gosh.
And Fontographer people thought Fontographer was like a trademark or copyright, because when someone would take Fontographer and modify a font, I don't know if you remember this, or make one, it would show as Fontographer was the brand of the font. So it would say like, whatever Eli script by Fontographer. And so people were like, oh, I bought this font from Fontographer. I'm like, no, that means someone opened up the font and closed it with Fontographer. So I was just remembering all the funny things about Fontographer that you would read there. You'd see these fonts that still say Fontographer, and I'm like, oh wow, that's old.
Oh my gosh, you're going way back in time. So we got some, so Bird Font, there's another one. Glyphs is very good. Yeah, there are some really good ones. I don't think that it means that even though Font Lab was one of the earlier ones, I don't think they're the full featured one. I just think that they're one of the earlier ones. Glyphs can do quite a bit. RoboFont, I don't know as much. I know they teach that at Type at Cooper. So.
Oh, cool.
We have to That's another talk, I guess.
Yeah, that's another
Sorry,
one.
Maurice. Yeah, no. Hopefully, I mean, it seems
You know
like
what? We should convince some more people from our design group to come do this, huh?
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you have Terrence. He had a very
Yes.
specific thing, but I mean, who else is on this girls? Carl, Jim. That's some great designers.
Yeah, we could do a whole panel.
Yeah, a panel.
I know. So we got some good comments here. Thanks guys. Really appreciate
great questions. Also, by the way, guys, those are really good. Some of those I wasn't expecting, and I love that. I love anything you guys have, or any follow-ups. If you forget something, I'm sure she'll send them to me.
So yeah. So the first 5 who ask questions, we will be sending Monotype swag to you. Yeah. So you'll be drinking out of this. Yeah. Good. Excellent. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Sorry we went over time. It's good though. You guys had a lot of good questions, and that was very helpful. Now, if you have any questions, do you want to? I will do a follow up for everybody, and then send them your email address.
We'll see what happens. Sure. No, I'd love to talk. Any type of licensing questions I can help, and if anything comes out of it, that'd be great if I can help out in any way.
Right.
So, yeah.
And the other thing is that I'm hoping to open up, or I'm going to open up a Facebook group for all of the typography dojos. So, if there are questions about not only licensing, but font development or lettering or whatnot, then you guys can still keep in touch with all the speakers that we've had in the past, and we can keep the conversation going.
Yeah,
so.
No, these are all great conversations. I think it would be benefit to some of these threads to keep on going.
I totally agree.
So they're kind of help threads, and if you're going to an Apple support type of thread where the questions asked and people are still answering 2 years ago. I mean, that's always helpful. I mean, I love going back to say, oh, someone answered one of these questions, and it's a new answer because something changed.
Exactly. So I'll put that information in the follow-up. And so thank you so much for swinging by.
It's a big pleasure. Glad we could finally have this fun licensing talk and interview. So
I didn't know licensing was so interesting.
Oh yeah, I try to make it interesting. I'm sure I could even do better with funny hand gestures and puppets and slides showing police raiding a building. And say this is the font police and vodka.
Well, thank you also for hanging out while we were losing connection. So
thanks everyone.
When I have these live events, we don't lose connection for a couple minutes.
So I'm bad luck.
I'm talking about in-person events.
Oh, okay.
In-person events, we don't lose connection with the audience for a couple minutes. But when it's on the web,
when I'm at my own home, and got it. Okay. Next time.
Exactly. Well, have a good day, and I'll send a follow up. It was good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.